Attention Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha D. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And, Dean, what are we doing here today?
Well, it's kind of difficult to talk about because we're looking at um, difficulty ratings. So it's the difficulty of difficulty ratings, if you will. So basically, we're going to just kind of look at, is it really that hard to set difficulty levels, and kind of the philosophy thought process, what directions we go, you know, all the little nuances that you can kind of do with difficulty rating. So that's what we're here to talk about. I mean, uh, Anthony, what you got to
Yeah,
say?
task difficulty, is the core mechanic of Cypher system. I think it's the one mechanic that, if you're trying to teach a new player, if they grasp this concept, they can learn everything else, as the game progresses. So and it's probably one of the easiest mechanics to learn. So for the sake of this discussion, I guess we'll break it down into, four different subcategories, like the difficulty rating for monster and NPC stat blocks, the difficulty ratings for narrative challenges, adjusting difficulties on the fly, and setting tasks above the target number 10. So for the sake of this discussion, we pulled the definition from the MCG revised Cypher Core Rulebook PDF, page 403, and we'll let Al do the honors on reading the definition.
All right, so the book states it as such. The GM's most important overall tasks are setting the stage and guiding the story created by the group, not the one created by the GM ahead of time. But setting difficulty is the most important mechanical task the GM has in the game. Although there are suggestions throughout this chapter for various difficulty ratings for certain actions, there is no master list of the difficulty for every action a PC can take. Instead, the Cypher system is designed with a teach a person to fish style of good game mastering in mind. If you don't know what that means, this comes from the old adage, give a person a fish and they'll eat for a day, teach a person to fish and they'll eat for a lifetime. The idea is not to give GMs a ton of rules to memorize or reference, but to teach them how to make their own logical judgment calls later. Of course, most of the time, it's not a matter of exact precision. If you say the difficulty is 3 and it should have been a 4, the world is not over. For the most part, it is really as simple as rating something on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being incredibly easy and 10 being basically impossible. The guidelines in the task difficulty table presented again on page 404 for reference should help put you in the right frame of mind for assigning difficulty to a task.
It's funny that they used the fish reference because Malfectious in the chat was talking about how he had a bad fish dinner. So,
Hey, he said, what's the DC for trying to choke down fishy ribs?
But yeah, so it really is pretty simple, straightforward. Like the definition said, it's basically looking at what your player is trying to do, or the situation at hand, and saying, hey, how hard is it on a scale of 1 to 10? And pretty simple, pretty easy.
Yeah, I think I think this is the one rule that Monty said, hey, you could adjust this. Whatever whatever works best for the story, within reason, of course. The GM should be allowed to play around with the target numbers. So I guess it'll lead to our first mini category, but monster stat. Oh, go ahead, D.
I was just gonna say, to kind of give you a little bit more perspective on it. I think that's the reality, and that's what I was saying earlier about it being kind of nuanced, and it helps with the elegance of Cypher system. Because you do have the ability to control how your adversaries or whatever, or how interaction with the world is affected by those difficulty numbers. So, just wanted to throw that out there, kind of put it all together. But as you were saying, Anthony?
So I guess the first target numbers that we should hit are for monster stat blocks, because a person first starting, usually they're gonna run a written adventure, something pre-published, and they'll follow the numbers. And you know, newer GMs tend to be combat focused, so they would have mostly relying on the stat blocks of creatures. So do you guys adjust the stat blocks if you use pre-written stat blocks at all? Do you adjust them
Yeah.
according to your game?
I say yeah. I mean, I look at it in the sense of this, because I'm kind of versed in the game and everything. The stat blocks that they give me are just guidelines. It's a suggestion, but again, it depends on what the group is wanting. Because I could take a published adventure and they might say they want to play something gritty, so take a published adventure and have to make some adjustments, to make it more gritty, or you know if you're looking to do something whimsical, you might want um, the stat blocks to be a little bit quicker on the draw, so things could be resolved quickly, and you want the characters to feel heroic anyway. I mean, it's not until later on in the game do truly attempt to challenge them, because you like to build your character up, that your player.
And just to touch on the topic a little bit about just whether or not I use the stat blocks as written or whatever have you, or adjust them. There's nothing wrong with using it as written. If if you're not sure how things will play out, you're new, just throw it in there, see what happens. But something to like think about with like adjusting the numbers, if you are of the mindset of you want to use it by the book all the time, that's kind of going to stifle your like creativity a little bit, right? Or your options, because there's only so many difficulty X of whatever in the book. So something that you should keep in mind or try to do is look at the book and look at a cool monster or something you want to use, and if it's too strong, overpowered, or maybe too weak, just adjust the number and you can still include it. And again, it'll fit because you went and made that small change. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it should be encouraged, actually. And then, again, if you're running a low-level game, you can still include a quote-unquote high-level baddie from the book. You just have to change a couple numbers.
I'm a big fan of creatures, and I know Numenera has this a lot. Creatures that have multiple task difficulty numbers. So I might see a creature in a book that's a difficulty, 5 tasks, straight down the board, and I might adjust it for, say, hey, this is a big creature. We're gonna say that its speed defense is gonna be a 3 instead of a 5, and I might raise the might defense or might based task against this creature to a 6, depending on how I fit the creature into the narrative.
Well, even creatures as written, since I'm at the CSR open, since we were going to talk about it, and right on the first or second page of the creature section on page 316 in the PDF, so that'd be 314 actual page number, and it talks about just that, like different creatures, like a black bear. It's a level 3 creature, but it attacks as a level 4, so it still defends as a level 3, but attacks as a level 4. Then you got guard dog, level 3 creature, but its perception is level 4, and so on and so forth. So they actually, give you, those type of things. Or you can look at a typical animal like a grizzly bear is a level 5 creature, but it has a health of 20 instead of 15, and it has 1 armor. So it's very easy to make adjustments within your creature just based on the idea behind the creature or the idea behind the setting. So if you were playing, prime example would be like if you're playing in an aquatic setting and everything you have in your game is slightly adapted for underwater, or, being amphibious. So those are all little things you could add in: amphibious, water breathing, resistance to cold, resistance to pressure, which could, translate into natural armor +1 or natural armor +2. Just being able to look at, again, like I said, nuanced, and it doesn't make your life difficult or any harder behind the screen, if you will.
That also applies to NPCs as well. say there's a reoccurring NPC that always manages to get away. You know, later on in the story, if it's a one shot or if it's a multiple, episodic campaign, that you could adjust that NPC stat block according to what happened in the narrative. So this could have been a level 2 guard, but since he's been in 4 adventures, now he's a level 5 elite guard, because his character grew within the narrative to, justify having a higher stat block.
Right.
There's definitely a fun way to handle it should there be like a recurring NPC or if you're in a campaign. It's not something I often think about actually because I'm usually of the one-shot mindset. But we did have a question in chat that is a pretty good segue into something else to talk about when adjusting your difficulty numbers of things. So Jesus or Brilliant Loser says, "Has anyone ever changed the difficulty of a monster as the session goes? I did a horror one-shot where the killer got weaker after each kill." And then Malfectious said he did it the other way around. It starts weak, gets stronger.
Yeah, I think... I'm sorry. I think every GM, that's one of the key abilities you need to have. You need to be flexible as a GM. If your big bad is getting his ass whooped, like 2 seconds, it's one thing to allow them to, steamroll your big bad. That's fine. But you want at least a little bit of a dramatic moment. So maybe make one slice adjustment on a difficulty task just to make it a little bit harder. Or the other way around. You running a supers game, right? And you expected your players to be able to handle a difficulty 8 or difficulty 9 creature, and then for whatever reason they rolling horrible, or it's just everything is going the wrong way. Maybe you could bring that difficulty number down by 1 or 2. It'll still be challenging, and they still have to work for it. But you're not going to just like end the game on a needless TPK.
And let me chime in for a second there before I lose the thought. I don't want to lose the thought. I don't want to lose the thought. What you call it? Something to think about when thinking about what Anthony just said is a good way to think about that narratively, because a lot of people struggle like, hey, I can change this mechanic, but what does that mean for the game, like narratively for the players or whatever? So what you call it? In the first example where the boss gets stronger or whatever have you, you could say, hey, they're making a last ditch effort. Hey, they're using effort or whatever, to use the Cypher terminology, and they're going all out. Like, hey, they're on their last leg. Boom, they're gonna throw out this crazy attack that's a much higher difficulty. Blah blah blah. Narrative, however you want. And in the reverse way, if the thing is too strong, maybe after landing a couple of attacks, narratively the thing is starting to fatigue, and now the difficulty number is lowering. And again, that's all narratively, and it makes sense for the number to change and blah, blah, blah. And it shouldn't really... You got to have that flexibility in mind when thinking about these things. You can't have that number be too rigid, especially if you see a player struggling or it being too easy to the point of being not fun.
I will say this.
Hold on, Anthony. Yeah. Hold on. Because I've been waiting.
I think we'd have so much to say.
I'm holding on. I froze.
What
I wanted to say is because I wanted to speak to this. I actually, and these guys were in the game. When we were playing GM Roulette, I actually had to make an adjustment like that with the big bad. They were fighting a robot, a dreadnought robot, and
we were whooping that ass.
They were actually crushing the bad guy. I wasn't going to be able to do nothing with him. One of the characters was using a weapon as a car, so he just kept making his car appear and dropping on the dreadnought, doing damage every time, blam, blam. So I had to make an adjustment. I had to think on my feet. What I did was had the dreadnought, the last time he dropped the car, it broke into smaller component pieces, and I used the horde rules, in order to make it still challenging for them. But then when it separated and fought them on individual levels, or they, reduced the number of, autonomous little spider-like things that it broke up into, they were at a disadvantage, and it was awesome. And it allowed for, as Al was saying, it speaks to the same thing. Narratively, this thing turned into multiple creatures that you couldn't just drop the car on and take it out, So they had to change their tactics. which again made they still won. They tapped that ass, as Anthony said, but it was fun, and it was an exercise in learning how to adjust quickly to what your players might do.
I will say this though, you as a GM, you should definitely adjust the numbers, right? But there's a fine line. You can't adjust the numbers either one way or the other willy-nilly, because then you make your players seem like they're actually not playing the game, and they just just actors in your screenplay. Like it should be done occasionally, but not for every combat. Sometimes the players are just going to whoop that ass, and sometimes the players are just going to get their ass whooped, and they have to accept that, and you have to accept that. You do it sporadically. You don't do it for every combat, because then it sort of like loses the mystique of, can I beat this person, or
right.
It has to have purpose.
Well, like I said, it does have a purpose. I mean, and once again, I can use another example with you. When we played the game, when you couldn't roll above a 1, that one game, and then at the end of the game, you rolled 4 or 5 20s in a row.
That's the story of my life. I think my D20 has like 7 pips in it because it never goes higher than 7.
But literally, and then he turned around and rolled like 5 20s. And it was like, nope, I'm not even going to play any games. This is it. You just wiped out the big bad. But it is what it is. I mean, he has so many options, 5 20s in a row. Oh, I can add damage. I can,
Yeah, that was just crazy. I've never done that in person or online before. I literally had 5 20s in a row. That was, and that's why I haven't rolled a 20 since.
Yeah, that was about a year ago.
Oh boy.
It was Halloween time last year that I ran that adventure. Remember? That was the horror adventure.
We did have another question or inquiry earlier on. I just want to mention it before it gets lost in the chatter. My 20-sided life, or our good friend Andrew, he asked, "What do you do with creature DCs with characters with mixed tiers, especially in games with power shifts that widely screw with player abilities?"
I tend to lean on the high side, especially when power shifts are involved. I tend to have higher DCs and let the players adjust it with effort and edge. And if you have mixed tiers, that's actually perfect, because when you have a mixed tier game, you want to emphasize that like divide, so that lower tier player has to show creativity, and you have to, as a GM, you have to implement in your scenes parts for those players to be involved. So you do a 2-tier scene, like there's like a building collapsing where the tier 4 character can handle that, and the tier 2 character is taking the people, the people in danger out of the way, and you create 2 difficulty target numbers for both their actions at the same time. Stuff like that, off the top of my head.
Well, like I said, you mix it up. You, like Anthony said, and that's literally what it is. You're just mixing up the action. And not just putting the action as in, like in the example Anthony used, where it was, you get the people out and I'll do this, but even mix it up, puzzles and things like that, because you have certain characters that lean heavier in one direction than the other, and you just kind of be aware of the players at your table, so every character does feel like they're shining. And so I think what Anthony's saying, I agree with it 100%. And I just like put it in the bag, shake the bag up, and start pulling out numbers.
And actually, we had someone in the chat give an interesting take on this. Crucian Giles, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Joya, that's Joya. That's my friend Joya, guys. She's
Joya.
Awesome. Welcome. But what they said is, if I have ranging levels, I then add the all the tier numbers together. I'm not reading it word for word. And then they average it and use that as a difficulty. I think that's a really interesting idea. Even if it doesn't work out perfectly, you still have the adjustments you can make. averaging it out would be a very excellent way to try like a good starting ground for it. That's if you don't want to.
What that makes me think about is just the typical equation. If she factors it out, gets a average level, that's the baseline level of everything that you deal with until you decide to go up or down. So I think it's kind of cool. That kind of makes kind of cool sense to me.
I mean, that kind of leads into our the next like little like questions we wrote down to ask ourselves. But how do you create tension using difficulty ratings in the narrative?
I don't.
Wait, what?
He said, how do you implement difficulty in the narrative?
You're using difficulty ratings, difficulty tasks. How do you create tension using that mechanic in the narrative?
I mean, if you want to do it that way, I mean, that would speak to the same thing. You're going to push the characters to their limit. So you put them in a situation, like kind of using your example. Let's just say you took a couple of first tier characters. We're doing a disaster thing, and they're inside the building, and it's that scene in the movie. You want to do that scene in the movie where somebody could possibly die, or separate the party. So they're trying to get across a chasm, in the building that's collapsing. There's a great divide, and they got to get to the other side so they can go down the elevator shaft and to safety. Well, that's a difficulty 8. There's no way they're going to reduce that difficulty past a 4. So they still got to roll a 12 or better. So that's tension, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay," and they're figuring it out. So that's just one thing off the top of the dome.
Mofectious, I gotta disagree with you on that. He wrote tension and difficulty are 2 separate things. Yeah, they are 2 separate things, but I think the mechanic of difficulty ratings is a tool to create tension.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was just saying what.
I see what you're saying. I see it.
Like tension is a feeling, you know what I mean? Just like happiness, joy, sadness, and you use the mechanics of the game to create those feelings in whatever game you're running. So I definitely think they go hand in hand.
And Joy,
they're not 2 separate things.
Joy just made a good point, which is kind of like the what's her name? Horror mode in reverse. She said you can add drama to your narrative and make things seem like they're taking longer. The DC starts to creep up. So maybe you do something that causes the DC to drop, or maybe you do something to cause it to go up. So yeah, that is a good way to do it too. So I really dig it. So
I also like adding multiple task numbers. Like you have them roll for one thing. There's a dark corridor, and they have to roll a perception roll to see what's happening, and then all the way at the they see a flickering light all the way at the end of the tunnel and hear a sound, a whoosh, as water starts flooding into the room. Now they have to give you a speed defense roll to run out of the room. Like, just start piling on the rolls consecutively. And, the more rolls at a higher number, it's going to build the tension. They're going to be like, oh, this first roll was a 3. Now this is a 5. What's happened? The room is filling with water. Now it's a 7.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. As that goes up, and you realize, you can't just, hand wave it away with some effort and edge,
Yeah.
Brilliant loser.
Jesus.
Jesus, I did. Jesus says that's why one RPG where you definitely play Jenga instead of rolling dice.
Yeah, that's Dread. That's such a
I want to play that. Y'all have told me about it.
Dread.
I haven't played
it.
We played Yard Jenga. It is kind of crazy.
Yo, next Gen Con, we'll do a CU Dread game.
Oh, I'm down.
Okay, I'm down.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Even the adventures that came with it are awesome.
Hey, Jesus, don't talk to me about difficulty 7s and sharks with this guy over here. That's a flashback.
Yo, the only person I ever see roll worse than me was Jesus in that game.
Oh, man. I blame Roll20. Well, it was Roll20, right? I blame that die spot. 100%.
If people listen don't know what we're talking about, it's a horror one shot that we streamed, and is on our YouTube channel called The Box. I don't think Jesus rolled higher than a 5 the whole game.
But yeah,
Yes, I do. Yes, Joya, I hate it with a passion. It is a piece of garbage.
yeah,
I will
honestly.
rant and rave about that damn thing forever.
One thing we haven't really touched on that we mentioned
Dean
was going to
hates
be
roleplay.
yeah, what? But either way, what you call it was setting difficulties that are above 10. Like when you have a supers game, or like what situations call for that? How do you handle that? We were just talking about supers. That's an excellent example to go with. What you call it? It can be difficult. Honestly, I don't have much experience with it, so it's hard for me to speak on the topic. But it's definitely super interesting.
I mean, I was gonna say difficulties above 10 are perfect for a GM. Yeah. That's the hold the hell up. Think twice before you do this, because when I tell you this difficulty number, it's gonna make you fall back, especially in a game that doesn't have power shifts. So like if you really want to tell the players this is a bad idea, when they say, hey, that building is collapsing and burning down, I want to run in and retrieve my cell phone that I dropped 4 stories up. So yeah, you can, but you're probably looking at a difficulty 11 to get back down on a speed roll. Mm-hmm. It'll make them stop and think. I'm curious. Anybody in the chat, have you guys used difficulties higher than 10 in a non-power shift game?
No, I haven't. I mean, well, I've used them to basically point out that what you're trying at this point is a sheer impossibility. That this is for informational purpose. This is educational. This is not for something for you to run in against, but to just use it, as a other than not mechanically, no.
I mean, I haven't ever.
And in all fairness, 9 and 10 and 11 are pretty much the same thing. When you don't have any power shifts, it still takes especially tier 1. It still takes effort. It takes a high roll to succeed. So it is still an extremely difficult task. No matter what. A 9 is no different than a 10, really.
I've never had an instance where I needed to say, hey, this thing is difficulty 9, 10, whatever. Most of the time, even though my players do tend to be not wacky, but like tend to try ridiculous things, it's never to that extent, like trying the impossible. So I've never had an instance where it's like, actually, this is difficulty 10, like you can't do it, or it's gonna be super duper hard. So yeah, I've never had assigned a difficulty 10, like never.
I mean, most of the time when I want to do something show it's really difficult, I usually say 6. Because you want to give them the opportunity to succeed. But there are those rare occasions where somebody wants to do a really, really dumb thing that makes no sense in the story. Then you got to start hitting them with the 7 and the 8s.
Well,
a little jab to the ribs.
I'll use 7s dependent. As a matter of fact, the game that you roll 5 freaking 20s in, I actually was a difficulty 8 adversary. I did that on purpose, because I wanted, it was a full party against the one guy, and it would have been a pretty good fight, but Anthony just ruined it.
I mean, that's a great example. Another reason why you should use higher target numbers is if it's a game that you want your players to exhaust their resources.
Yep.
Especially if you like towards the end of the session and no one's really used any resources, you want to raise up the difficulty a little higher so they could be like, hey, I'm gonna apply 2 levels of effort, to take some of that pool, especially if you're not hitting them with any damage or anything.
Now, Faction says he saves his DC 7 and 8 for tier 5 characters. Tier 5 and 6 characters. Now, tier 5 and 6 characters get my 9s and 10s, and the occasional 11. If, even though, it's not a power shifted game, I might go so high because when you're that level, you're not cakewalking, and a 5-6 level character, that's what, 5 levels of effort
Five,
at his
6 levels of
disposal?
effort. Yeah, just
Yeah, five
six,
levels of effort at
six
your
levels
disposal.
lower. Boom.
Yeah, yeah, dude, you're gonna, yeah.
I know everybody's made this mistake. You forget how much levels of effort someone has. So then you say, "Hey, it's a difficulty 4 roll." D did that to me in one game in the Teen Supers game. I was like, "It's a difficulty 6 roll," and he was like, "Okay, I got 4 levels of effort. My power shift. Okay, I'm not rolling." And I was like, "God, damn." Like I let it pass, but in my mind I was like, "This."
And it's more than okay to make those sort of like errors because again, even though you might not have intended for it to be so easy, especially in a supers game, you want them to feel that power of like, hey, I don't even have to roll to do this. Like,
But it was just one of those things. It was a scene that he wanted to go. I know he wanted it to go
Yeah,
longer.
you want to extend the scene.
I was like, yeah, I'm super today. That's when I got to hit my superhero pose.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yo, I lost my. I had a good question I was gonna ask the chat, but I totally forgot.
But if y'all out there have any more questions for us, feel free to throw them at us. I feel like we've hit the topics we've written down. Again, we can talk more about stuff if people have questions. But
here's a good one that we probably didn't touch. Like let's touch on the pitfalls and hazards to changing the difficulty number.
I mean,
like that's a good one.
We kind of touched on that a little bit, right? It was actually you who touched on it a little bit earlier. What you call it? If you do it too often, players won't feel in control of what's going on. They still want to, like, again, it's more you want to do it to have purpose and meaning, like to change something that's going on in the story. If you're doing it every combat, every narrative encounter or whatever, the players are going to feel like what Anthony said. They're just like actors in your play or like characters in your novel. Like what's the point of even them rolling dice or even like having certain abilities or whatever have you when things are going to just be willy-nilly changed on them. That is definitely one huge pitfall to try to avoid, is overusing it.
And then the other thing that I say, Anthony kind of touched on it as well when he was talking about forgetting what your players have. Cypher System is one of the few games that, as a GM, I think that might be your biggest job, is just remembering the players at the table. But when you understand, or should I say, when you embrace those characters and it becomes that truly interactive, sharing that you're doing at the table, it becomes a little easier. But if you forget, your players are going to make you look real silly.
I mean, it happens to the best of us, and yeah, that is definitely another like pitfall to avoid, or a good way to avoid that pitfall is to always keep in mind what kind of reductions your characters can make in the game, whether it be their built-in effort or the abilities or skills they have. And you have to keep in mind ciphers. A lot of ciphers reduce difficulty in some way. And
Pac-Man had a question too. I'm gonna hit it after you're done.
We had a monkey brought up a good point. They wrote, I make sure they know that it's a difficult task, mainly through description, without giving them the target number. But I have a question. Have you ever allowed your players to describe a scene and then you adjust the difficulty according to how they described it?
Well, that's kind of what Techman is asking, which I think is kind of funny, because I've actually had to do it. Basically what he said, have there ever been moments for the GM that player intrusions has changed the difficulty in their favor by a big degree? And not necessarily a player intrusion, because that's technically not how a player intrusion should be used. It can be, but it should be adding or something to the narrative. But speaking to what Anthony was saying and what you're saying, yes, you have to sometimes. A lot of times, if I do it, I'll have the player describe something to me so I can, set some boundaries, because I'm going to let them pick their own poison, so to speak. And that's one of the arts, I think, of coming to Cypher System. You start to really become interactive with your players.
And I think most Cypher players are very descriptive. And most players, here's a little secret: most players are they'll put themselves in worse positions than you ever would as a GM. Like if you say, "Hey, you're sitting at a table relaxing," and all of a sudden the door bursts open and you hear a loud flash sound, what happens? In your mind, you have two guys busting through with a flashlight, and their mind is a SWAT team of 20 people coming in. Or if you let them describe what's going on, it's going to be way worse 9 out of 10 times than what you had initially planned.
As a matter of fact, that's a great one, Anthony. You told a guy one day, that was you, Anthony. Remember, we were playing the one game, and I was like, so this is somebody from your past, and he doesn't like you very much, Anthony's like, oh yeah, when we were kids, he used to pop the heads up and this and that. I was like, damn, I just wanted to be like a guy who didn't like you from work or something, But they give you all the tools.
Yo, just real fast. Thanks for the subscribe. What is it? Ken
Davidson 925.
I believe that's Ken, if I'm not mistaken.
That's Ken, definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that. We really, really appreciate it. I didn't mean to interrupt. Now I lost my train of thought because that's exciting. That's the first sub.
Just so everybody out there knows, we're excited because we just made affiliate, and so we're feeling it. So keep them coming. Keep them coming.
But one quick thing about Ken, who just subbed. He's an awesome indie game designer, and if you haven't, Ken, if you can, post your link to some of your games, because Ken designs great games.
And
so, please check him out.
And Ken, you need to come on and come on back anyway, and come back on the show. We want to talk about being gay and doing crime.
Wow. Yo, so I just gifted a sub under my personal, and it gave it to you, Dean. And I chose at random, and it chose you. Well, congrats, Dean. You're subscribed.
Oh, that's what that was.
Huh? Oh, we just got a raid too from High Shelf Gaming. Thank you so much for that raid. We really, really appreciate it. And it's funny now, the subscribes, everybody who just subscribed, thank you so much. I didn't catch everyone who just did. I just heard the alert go off a lot. We really, really appreciate it.
Hopefully they didn't come in to see how rigged our stream is. The next gift of sub is going to me.
Oh, well, I'm gonna try one more time.
We have a $5,000 raffle, and the winner is Spigs 18.
Let's try one more time. Let's see how RNG works. But either way, oh my God! It did give it to you. Why? What's happening? What?
It did give it to me.
No way! It's supposed to be. It's random. It should be random. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna stop. doing it.
Yo, he said GM is adjusting numbers unfairly on the fly.
He's adjusting them on the fly and not know which way to go.
This goblin's a difficulty 1 in the first seed and a difficulty 7 2 seconds later.
Oh, it's more likely to give it to people or hear more? I did not know that. Is there a way to gift it true random? That's what Jesus is saying. That's interesting.
Oh, because we're at every show.
Oh man, that's so funny.
You can't trust Jesus. He's part of the. He's in on the rig.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, let's get back on track. Let's get back.
So let's get back.
All right, so let's go back to target numbers. What is Does anyone have an embarrassing moment with setting difficulties that you thought were either too hard or too easy and want to share a story about target numbers? Setting a difficulty.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Oh, you can start while I think that.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm still embarrassed because I had the great big bet. I mean, it was the luck of the die that he got autumn there, but it was just great because I had one round had them quaking in their boots, and it was perfect. It set the tension, it set the bar, and then it all went to shit because Anthony decided to roll all the 20s for everybody and literally killed the bad guys. And and I mean, there was just no way to cheat budget out or anything because he did like 80 points of damage. It's not fair. So yeah, I'm embarrassed and it sucks. And Al is laughing.
No, I'm just laughing because it seems so rigged. But either way, let me stay on topic. I have had that moment happen, but not because the one thing, you guys know I mostly run one shots, right? And the one I've run the most, by far, most likely, is the Predation one shot. And you guys having had played it, I believe a couple of our viewers have played it as well, know that in the end there's like a big old baddie that's a giant T-Rex, and there's like a doctor who tags along to fight. Either way, that fight is usually, a decent fight. Like it's not too bad, not too hard. Excuse me. It's usually pretty difficult, but not to the point that the players feel like they can't overcome it, or it's never to the point that it's too easy. Like I've never felt the need to really adjust it. However, there was one game where the players, I forget who was in that group. I wish I remembered. They decided to befriend the T-Rex. And I think I said it to 7 or 8 or something. And this is a tier 1 adventure. And they did it. And it worked. And they charmed it. And it was like they escaped with it after everything. And sometimes things just happen. And it's always fun to see them especially when you run the same thing repeatedly. It's fun to see the same challenge or difficulty, they approached it in a different way, and I had to adjust the number on the fly, and they were still able to tackle it, it was awesome. It was just an awesome moment. Yeah, I mean, that's not more of an embarrassing. You said embarrassing story, right? That was more of an awesome moment of the switch.
Tier 1 characters are a lot more resourceful in Cypher system than many other systems. Between effort and edge, ciphers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you look at this, is what I have to keep talking about it because I get frustrated with a lot of people who I talk to who try to get them to understand Cypher, or they'll tell me they don't like Cypher and never played and all of that. I really don't believe they understand how much control they have of just the essence of their character, with that narrative power of being able to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to throw some effort into making this task easier, and they get to the point that they make it look like it's nothing. Or then the other guy's like, you know what? I'm going to add effort to do damage. Again, they beat the big bad, make it look like nothing. And I don't think people really get the fact that it's just, you express all this narratively. You express it through, Anthony, you were saying earlier that Cypher players are more descriptive, because again, the game lends itself to that ideology. So I think all of these things just kind of plug and play together in order to make us, or in order to allow us to do what we want. You get those moments. I think we get more of those magic moments, those memorable moments in our games, whether they're one shots or, long campaigns. Because it's like every time I play with you guys, there's a moment in somebody's game that you go, man, that shit was great. That was great. I mean, Anthony killed the whole party in his God Doesn't Love Us Anymore zombie horror thing. And, like 2 of us survived at the end. It was one of the best adventures we ever played. I mean, to die, have to pick up another character because, it was just a great. It gave the feeling of being in that tense zombie horror feeling, crazy as it was, in that last scene, hanging off the side of the boat with the rocket launcher, looking back and taking a shot at the Intrepid, and the screen goes black. That was his last thing he did for us. I was like, oh man, that was great.
And it's also fun every once in a while to kill a bunch of players.
I don't think I've
not
ever
all
actually
the time,
done
but
that.
once in a while, it's not bad. It's not a bad feeling.
I think the only time I've ever had player death in my games was in my Killer in the Woods game, the horror one shot. Usually players are pretty good about avoiding death in my normal games.
Well, see, and now with Stay Alive, though, you get to actually have fun with it, and you plug in some of those rules, the dumb character rule, where they don't realize they're in a horror movie. This is the world of people who've never seen a horror movie, so they make the bad decision.
Yes.
So all of those things to be plugged in would be so much fun too.
I definitely need to revisit that one shot for sure.
Oh, you absolutely, Joya. Yes, that is why Joya said, yeah, those stories are why we play. And it's like, absolutely.
Yeah, Cypher definitely lends itself to more of those memorable moments. And I think also Cypher System's memorable moments aren't necessarily combat, which is refreshing for a role playing game. Like a lot of other systems, more mechanic heavy systems, the moments you remember or when you pull off those MMO type combos, you know what I mean? And those are those memorable moments in those systems. But Cypher System, when you ask like a random person, hey, what's your most memorable Cypher moment? Most of them are going to tell you the story about how they conned someone into doing something, or how the whole party snuck on a spaceship. It's a non-combat moment.
How you rode axe down the side of a giant aquarium.
Yeah, a knock. With a shark and a guy
with a shark
only angle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This has been fun. Nice fun talk. Nice fun crowd.
Joya, thank you so much. And yes, I will definitely get you back in, and we will get a game going. And I'm glad you had fun. She's going to be one of our new converts. She'll.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was it was great talking to you guys. Cypher Unlimited, we kind of changing and readjusting some things. We most likely we're gonna start streaming every Wednesday, and start recording individual like YouTube content, like our interviews and our actual plays and stuff like that on other days in the week. And I know all three of us are going to start recording individual videos, which we'll start posting. So we're going to have way more content on our YouTube channel. Like what Dean said, we now became affiliated on Twitch, so we kind of want to utilize this platform a little more. And, we love you guys. We love chatting about gaming. Everything we say isn't right, but we're not scared to say it. So,
Put it this way, everything we say isn't right, but it's right for us.
Yeah.
And we're a group of guys. We all have our own style. We all have our own flavor, but we can actually work together. We can game together. We learn from each other, and I think a lot of people kind of miss that aspect too. Cypher to me is really the game out there that's different than other games, because it has just enough mechanics that they get out of the way. There's just enough mechanics to do anything you want mechanically in the game. There's ways to apply that ideology to whatever gameplay, whatever game style you want to play. And when you learn that about Cypher System, it's easier to just fall into place with the difficulties. The difficulties, are those nuances we talk about. This is your way of making your game your game. You want to challenge the players. You might have a creature that they can hit easily, so they don't ever feel like it's a problem, but the creature has armor that they don't know about, so every hit that they do is doing 3 points less or 2 points less damage. Draws it out, builds the tension, builds the game. And that, I think, once you become comfortable, then you'll get that nuance. You'll be able to tell your story the way you want it to go, have it flow the way you want it to flow.
And that is like basically like the utmost beauty of Cypher System, is that you can do all these things with such little effort. Like again, I'm probably the least experienced GM out of all us three, but reading other rule books and stuff, I have done that. I've played a couple of other games. Just looking at the other rules and like playing a handful of other systems, just nothing really gets it like Cypher for me. Like there's just that exact level of crunch, that flexibility, that that openness, that back and forth between the player and the GM. It's not really one like heavy one side or the other side. There's that conversation to create a wonderful story together, and yeah, I love it. But yeah, this again has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you all so much for stopping by.
Which one, Joya? Which one? I'm sorry.
I'm gonna try this one more time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Joya, which one?
There we go. Somebody else. Let's go.
Hey, Mel. I'm happy Mel got it.
All right.
There we go.
Mel might be gone. He might have left already.
But either way, real quick, just to piggyback off the gifted sub, I will be adding, or we will be adding, emotes, like badges, all that good Twitch stuff. I have a lot of images and assets that I want to use, but yeah, they all that badge emote stuff is coming. Again, thank you guys so much for stopping by, having this talk with us. Last final words, gentlemen?
Yeah, you know how we feel about, we have the largest fan one Discord server. If I'm pretty sure everybody that's probably here is already a member, but if you aren't, please join on. We have games run pretty much daily. If you want to play games, post games, chat about Monica games, or just chat about life in general, come and say hi to us. We're always there. The three of us, plus we have so many I can't stress this enough. We have so many excellent GMs running games on that server. Come in if you want to play a game, or if you want us to play in one of your games. That could happen too. Just post it there. We also have a YouTube channel that we're really trying to build up the viewership. So please go there, and this video will be up tomorrow on that. Like, share, and subscribe there. Hit that notification bell. Let people know, that our videos are coming, and visit our online store, Cypher Unlimited. I feel like I'm like promoting everything, but visit our online store. We got hats, hoodies, t-shirts. Check it out there. We got some cool Cypher Unlimited swag if that's what you into as well. And we love you guys.
And the only thing I want to say to you is, if you guys are probably already members, thanks a lot. Stay members. Now go out and get your friends and family, bring them over, so we can corrupt them as well. And I did mean that, yes, corrupt them to Cypher System, because it's the bee's knees of gaming.
Oh, one last thing before I sign out that I forgot. We plan to start streaming some Halloween games. So if you're interested in being a player in any of these games, I'm pretty sure all three of us are going to be running something for Halloween. Hit us up on Discord, and we're trying to get some players. We're going to stream them. So if you want to be on camera with us ugly mugs, us trying to scare you and kill you, hit us up and we'll get you in the game.
Matter of fact, I think I'm going to do two. I'm going to do one next week, probably Friday night. And then I'm going to do one on the 30th. It's a Friday night. So
I got the gift of sub this time. No, wait. I will reciprocate real fast. Before we get out of here, I will reciprocate because I should. I'm going to do one more. Let's do one more. Just to reciprocate. Yeah. I wish it was true random. True random is better. There we go. We got it. Someone else got it. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm not gonna. But congrats, guys. Thank you guys so much for that. Thank you, Malfectious, for gifting that sub. You guys are so awesome. I really appreciate all this. I did not expect to see so much support on our first day on as affiliate. It's super duper appreciated. And again, look forward to the new badges. New emotes, all that cool, Twitch goodness. Yeah, and again, like Anthony said, look forward to more content from YouTube and all that good stuff. And before I keep dragging this out, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Love you guys so much. You're amazing. Love you, love you, love you. And from us at the CU, we will see you guys later.
Deuces.
Bye.